Hi everyone, this is Tracy King, the Bulletin Board Lady, and I'm coming to you live tonight to talk about instrument workstations, instrument of the orchestra workstations. I'm going to share a few of my ideas for workstations that I use as a culminating activity after my instruments of the orchestra unit. So while we're getting started, for those of you that might be new to these Workstation Wednesday broadcasts, I just want to let you know who I am and where you can find me on other social media. My name is Tracy King. I blog at mrskingrocks.blogspot.com. You can find me on Twitter as @TracyKing, on Instagram as @the Bulletin Board Lady, and the Bulletin Board Lady on Facebook. I also have a site called thebulletinboardlady.com where I sell much more than bulletin boards. Lots of other resources are out there, and that's just thebulletinboardlady.com. Right now I'm teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in Southeast Missouri, and I love workstations. Oh my gosh. I have really found that they have revolutionized the way that I teach and the way that I assess and the way that I may plan units or just planning in general. And in my 3rd grade classes every year, that's the year that I really deep dive into instruments, into instrument families. Jump in the comments, if you will, and let me know what grade it is that you really do that deep dive. Now, if you're like me, you've probably introduced instruments, just in preschool and kindergarten. In 1st grade, you may talk about the instruments that you hear. Maybe you would identify piano or flute or trumpet. Classroom instruments, but my deep dive really starts in 3rd grade. We review that in 4th grade and take it a little farther in 5th grade, but 3rd grade is really the time that we jump in and we learn instrument names and how to spell them and their characteristics and the families that they belong to. And we spend probably 6 to 8 weeks really focused on that. Now, we do other things during the lessons as well, but that's really the focus for a month and a half-ish or so. So what I do is I use the videos, and I've mentioned them before, called Instrumental Classmates, to introduce my students to instruments and instrument families. Because it's, let's face it, there's a lot of really boring videos out there, and this set is kind of goofy, and I would always rather have goofy than boring, so I like those. And then afterwards, we answer some simple questions about the instruments, like what kind of instruments are in this family, what are characteristics that they all have, and we talk about the fact that in our families, sometimes we have things that we all share, like maybe we all have brown hair, or maybe we all have dark skin, or blue eyes, or the family chin, or the family nose, or whatever. But I make sure that they know that families just don't look alike, that families can have other things in common. My family, we don't really look like each other, but maybe in families, everybody likes spicy food or monster trucks or scrapbooking or Star Wars or something like that. There's some common characteristic that all families share. And so we look for those in the instrument families, not only in their demonstration, but if I have some that I can pass around, we'll see, what things do they have in common. We'll also talk about what vibrates to make sound. In woodwinds, that's either air or reeds. In strings, it's the string. And I want them to make connections like that. At the end of this unit, after we've watched each of the instrument family videos and we've answered some questions, we've had discussions, whatever I have in the closet or in my garage, I bring in and they pass around. Some years we experiment with a STEAM project where you take a water bottle and turn it into an instrument from each of the instrument families. Sometimes we're able to play ukuleles after the string part of that. We play the P-Buzz, which is like, I don't know, have you seen a P-Buzz before? It's kind of like if a recorder and a trombone had a baby, That's kind of what a P-buzz is. But it's got a brass mouthpiece. And so, we'll play a few notes on that, and they'll get to experiment with high and low and that buzz that you make when you play brass instruments. With percussion, we do a big drum circle with lots and lots of different kinds of instruments, shakers and scrapers, and different kinds of drums with different timbres. And for the woodwind family, we make straw reeds. So we'll take a straw and kind of smash it down and then cut the sides off so it almost looks like a snake's tongue. And then we practice making a sound, feeling that vibration. So it's kind of like a double reed, like for the oboe. And you can Google how to do that with your class too. I would totally give you directions, but I don't know. I don't get it right every time the first time. So at the end of this whole Instruments of the Orchestra unit, it's been a long time since we've done workstations. I've told you before that I like to do workstations like every 4th or 5th class period. So it's been a little bit since we've done one. And so I take some of these workstations that I know they're going to be engaging, but I know will also let me know what they've learned in the past few weeks about Instruments of the Orchestra. I'm not really strict on only orchestral instruments into the families. So we, throw in some other instruments like bugles and dulcimers and things like that. So not really strict. So if I mention one of those instruments, I'm not just dumb, I'm just strategic, and that while we're learning about it, I'm just going to pull any instrument that could fit in that family. So one of the first workstations is an instrument matching game. And this is kind of just like my high-tech storage. It's a baggie. This game can be played like memory. And essentially what you have are little instrument cards that just have instrument name on them. So nothing fancy. This set also comes with the cards with no name. So that gives you a little bit more. Oh, there's the go-go. I just keep coming to that one, which gives you some options to do some different activities with that. And then there's another set that just has just the name of the instrument. So usually what I do is I set out the cards that have the instrument name and the picture. And then I mix them with a set that only has either the picture or, depending on the group dynamic, some groups just need a little bit more remedial attention. Then I will use the ones that have the actual name of the instrument on there. And sometimes, depending again, if I'm making modifications for special learners in a certain group or for the whole class, then I may just make 2 copies of this. And it works just like memory. You just lay them down and then they turn one over, they say the name, and they turn over another one and try to come up with a match. And if they can't, then they just turn the cards over. But these magic little cards can be used for lots of other things too. I've also used them for a game of Go Fish, and you play it just like you would regular Go Fish. You pass out 5 cards to every person, and they go in the circle and say, "Oh, do you have the bass drum? No, Go Fish." And then you draw a card, and so on. You could do it like Old Maid, except maybe it could be Old Marimba, right? I don't know. Pick your old instrument. I don't know. But that person, then you would, not want to end up with the marimba, and still you'd be picking cards to make matches and lay those down. So that can be a lot of fun too. I've also used these just for sorting instruments. So students would either get the cards that had the instrument name and picture, or the ones that just had the picture on them. And then they would sort them into instrument families. So they would work as a group in their workstation and lay all of the percussion cards down together and all of the strings down together and so on. Another way to sort into families is sometimes as they're coming into class, I'll pass out the cards just as they coming in, just, whoever gets whatever card and they take it to their seat. And I'll say, all right, if you are a member of the brass family, please move to the back row. If you are a member of the woodwind family, move to the second row or whatever. And just kind of have them rearranged based on their family. And what this does is creates maybe a minute or two of chaos in where they're all talking to each other and they're trying to figure it out. But the conversations that they're having are musical in nature. So what they're doing is they're saying, hey, I think this is in the percussion family, but it's brass. Do you think it's the brass or do you think it's percussion? And another student might say, oh, those are cymbals. Of course, that's in the percussion family. So I like having chaos that has conversations like that in it because it's awesome when kids are kind of leading the learning. Another way is to have them pass out cards like this and towards the end of class and say, okay, everybody make sure that you know what instrument you have. And so if I call brass, stand up and hold up your card. And they would stand up and I'd be like, oh, great, Johnny, what instrument do you have? Oh, I have the trumpet or whatever. And then when it's time to line up, I would say, all right, everybody in the percussion family, come in, give me your card or put it in this basket. Or I have this little decorated trash can, like the round lid on top, the little swingy thing. And I have it decorated like a person. I call him Hungry Harry, and we can on our way out the door, and I don't know why this is still appealing to 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, but it totally is, and the kids always want to feed Hungry Harry. I'll say, okay, well, woodwinds, line up, and you can feed Harry on your way to make your line in the hall. And so they would come through, and they would take their instrument, and they would pop it in Harry's mouth, and then go line up. I'll have to get a picture of that and post it for you sometime. I've also used this with a teacher request. She was saying that her class was really, really struggling with alphabetical order. And I thought, oh, well, easy peasy then. We'll just take this big stack of instrument cards and we'll place them in alphabetical order. For me, the benefit was that they were still identifying the instrument, or actually I was using these, still identifying the instrument and putting it in alphabetical order. Then they could also sort it by instrument family and put them in alphabet order in their instrument families. And for me, they were still getting that connection of this is an instrument and this is its name and this is the family group that it belongs to. So that was a great way to use them too. Another way is, I know y'all never have this problem, but you are finished with your class and you've got them all lined up and ready to go, and there's no classroom teacher, and there's no classroom teacher, and the kids are getting antsy and you're getting antsy and you're thinking, oh my gosh, now I have 3 minutes to pee and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes when I've lined them up, or sometimes if I get them lined up a minute or two early, we'll play a game called Sparkle. And Sparkle, the way I play it, you could probably Google it and find other variations to it, but the way I play it is at the beginning of the line, I'll give an instrument name like tuba. And the first person has to give the first letter of the word, the second person the second letter, the third person the third letter, the fourth person the fourth letter until the word is finished. And then the next person calls Sparkle. So we could do this probably 4 or 5 different times. I don't have to have the cards, but I kind of like to have, if I've already been using them especially, I like to have it just so that there's a visual with, okay, now we're spelling tambourine. And then if they get a spelling wrong or a letter wrong, then we start over with the next person. So that's called Sparkle. And if you Google it, you'll probably find a much more detailed explanation than that. But that's kind of a fun game to play while you're standing in line. For me, I really want my kids to be able to spell instrument names correctly. I am not a stickler for that, but I practice it a lot because a lot of spelling lists don't include a lot of the instruments that we may talk about in class. And I want them to know that. That's why I also have an instrument display up in my classroom that has the instruments sorted by family and listed alphabetically as well, so that students always have a reference. Do I let them use that while we're doing these workstations? Absolutely. Whatever they need to be successful. The next workstation that my kiddos love, and I am learning to love, uses dabbers. And these are bingo dabbers. Let me see if I can hold them up to each of the cameras. I like to find dabbers that are washable because kids, you know. Yes, Skylar, the instrument cards are in my Teachers Pay Teacher store. They're just called Instrument Matching Game. And if you jump over to Facebook, I have the link to all of the resources that I'm going to be talking about in this episode. So, washable dabber, or washable ink in the dabbers makes your life easier. The students said they love this. The only problem I found with using dabbers is that they need just a tiny little bit of dry time before they get stacked up, or they're going to smear a little bit. So I try to set my workstations up around the corners of the room if I can. And so we'll just make a drying area in the middle on some chairs, and that works for me. But these worksheets have, for this one example, says dot the brass. So there's a bunch of instrument pictures in these little circles, and their job on this page is to take a dabber and to dab each of the brass instruments. So you can erase with dabbers, but I try to be forgiving, and so I'll let them take a pencil and X one out if they've gone dabber crazy and have dabbed the wrong ones. So I let them cross that out. That would be up to you. I have one for each of the instrument families. I have just created these for brass, woodwind, percussion, and strings. I know that some people make more groups, like the keyboard group or an electronic group or something like that, but I just stick with the 4 basic ones for this section. In 5th grade, we may talk a little bit more and break the groups down a little bit more, but that's using dabbers. Also in the same kit, and these are in my store, it gives them the opportunity to identify the instrument, unscramble the letters, and then dab the family that it belongs to. And another one the same way, just a little bit harder in that it asks them to identify the instrument, but there aren't any letters to unscramble, and then to dab the family that the instrument belongs to. So that might be something that your kids would find interesting, and this is really great assessment. They do get a little bit excited with the dabbers. Okay, me too, totally me too. Dab, 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 and go a little crazy because it's really fun. So you may want to be close to this station as they get used to using the dabbers and how that all works out. You can find the instrument dabbers. I found them in dollar stores before. Those are not the washable kind. Those are actually like the take it to the bingo game and dab ones. But you can find these on Amazon and in craft stores. You can find the washable kind. That's absolutely what I would recommend that you pick up. All right, another workstation is from Hutzel House of Music. This takes, do you know this game? Have you guys ever played this? This is Guess Who. And she's made an insert that goes in the Guess Who game that you just buy like at Walmart or Target or wherever. And you take this insert, you print it out, and you put it in, and then you can play Guess Who with the instrument families. So how this works is there's another identical one of these. So you're either playing like 2 students against each other, or what I find works better is that you just divide the group in half. So if you have a group of 4, then it's 2 people playing 2 people. So the other person has picked an instrument, and let me get them all open. I totally should have opened that before I started this. Planning. So inside the doors, you can see there are instruments and their names. And then over here, you're going to pick the instrument that the other team playing against you has to. So I'm going to put mine right here on trumpet. That's just to remind me when they ask me questions what to do. So then I will look at all of my instruments, and I'll ask this other person, is the instrument you picked, is the special instrument, is it in the brass family? And if they say no, then I go through and I close all of the windows that have brass family. Did I get them all? And then they get to ask me a question about the trumpet. Maybe like, does it have a cup-like mouthpiece or something like that? Then I ask another question. Is it blue? And they would say no. So I would, stop the blue one. I found that kids, once they get into the game, really, really love it. When I'm introducing the center, like I go around before our round of workstations and I'll explain what to do at every station, just briefly, but enough. But here I'll model some of the questions and I'll say, don't just say, is it a violin? Is it a trumpet? Is it a marimba? But actually try to get rid of more than one at a time. So to say like, is it a silver instrument? Well, that could be a couple of instruments. Or is it an instrument that comes in more than one piece? Well, that could be, let's see, what else could that be? That wouldn't be those. And, eventually you would be left with just a couple of choices. Then you could say, is it the clarinet? And if it is, then yay, you win. And if it's not, then you miscalculated and you kind of have to start over. So this is a super fun game. It does take a little modeling for my students to be able to do it successfully at a workstation. And you can find it at the link. If you're watching me on Facebook, the link is up above in the comments. If you're on Instagram, you'll have to jump over. I'm still figuring this whole Instagram live thing out and get that link. Or you can just search for that on Teachers Pay Teachers. Another instrument workstation that my kiddos really love are punch cards. And punch cards are super fun. I have a set that's all about naming instruments in their family. And then I have another set that has to do with misspelled instruments. So what you do, we'll start with the one that you just pick the instrument. So students get a card and a hole punch. You can get hole punches at like Dollar Tree for $1. Sometimes at Dollar General, you can even get them for less than $1. I have several, because I'm a scrapbooker, I have several that are like, fancy. And then they look on the card. The instructions say, use the hole punch to punch only the names of instruments that belong in the percussion family. So here I am, the bongos. So I would go and slide my hole punch in. And I have hole punched bongos. And then so on and so forth with all of the other percussion instruments in that family. So what I usually do, because it doesn't really take long to punch all of the answers, is that I staple all 4 families and have them hole punch each of the 4 families at the station. And I find that takes just about enough time for the rotations, because they usually do 6 to 9-ish minutes or so at every workstation. And that way that fills that time a little bit more completely. So those are also in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. So I hope that you've got a few ideas that you can use tonight for instrument family workstations. And if you have any questions about that, drop me a message, hit the comments here. Just let me know what it is that I can help you with, if I can direct you to a resource, or if I can tell you what has worked for me. In the next Workstation Wednesday video, I'm going to be sharing with you some techie things to do with instruments of the orchestra, including some apps that I really love, a Google Sheets activity, and virtual reality, because do we not all want to take our kids to the symphony? And yet some of them, no, it just doesn't work out. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's the trying to get permission to do that. Some schools are only allowed 1 trip per year, but this way, with virtual reality, with some inexpensive tools, your kids can go and see like what appears to be a live orchestra performance. So I want to share those techie kind of things with you the next time that I go live. I will not be live next week because I will be at the Missouri Music Educators conference, but I'll have either a freebie or a product or a blog post up for you for Workstation Wednesday, so be sure to check back. But I will be back the week after that to share those techie instruments of the orchestra workstation. So thanks so much for joining me tonight, guys. See you soon.